Guide, we beseech thee, Almighty God, members of this Senate, that they may wisely deliberate for the good of this country and for the glory of your holy name. Honorables, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pray be seated. Your chamber is called to order. Happy to see those of you who are here, and perhaps I could announce at the very, very start that we have the request for understanding from 4 senators who are absent unavoidably. Senator Gloria Thomas, who's out of the country, Senator Andrew David, who is on other business, government business, Senator Godric St. Clair, who is also on government business out of the country, and Senator Monty Andre Lewis, who is also out of the country on business. We regret those absences. We wish them success at their endeavors, remind them that this is their highest undertaking, and welcome all those of you who are here. And I do want to urge you to make greater effort to be on time.
Item number 3, oath of allegiance or affirmation of a new senator. Item number 4, message from the Governor General. Item number 5, announcement by Madam President.
Thank you. I am pleased to welcome Mrs. Williams to the Office of the Clerk of the Parliament of Grenada. She will be our attending deputy clerk at the table under the guidance of our acting clerk, Melvina Gulston, who is acting because the clerk is accompanying the members of the Senate attending a government meeting out of the country. And it's nice again to have 2 women, 3 women in command. Right, Senator Charles? Yes. Senator Civil Francis is also rejoicing because we are advocates for our people, all our people, with a special little touch for the women. And I know Senator Thomas and Senator Cox are in great agreement. So welcome, Mrs. Williams, and thank you again, Ms. Gulston. I would like to congratulate the Ministry of Youth Affairs for the Youth Parliament they orchestrated 2 days ago. It was Senator Civil Francis was a proud both shepherd and participant and admirer of the emerging leadership of these young people, men and women. They debated the motion on gender-based violence, and I was impressed. I attended, I did not speak, I went to listen, and I really heard the astuteness and seriousness and creativity and hope with which they approached the subject. It was not arguments of, I don't know if I should say ordinary or uninformed nature. It was really grounded in our values around human rights, around equality, around the importance of everybody, every citizen having the right to undertake their, economic or other out-of-home interests. And it was sympathetic, and I think this is very important for me. The plight of those perpetrators and victims of gender-based violence was carried forward. They understood the situation of the women or the females, and they understood that certainly hypothesized the situation of the males and called for remedies and understandings and so of both sexes. And I thought that was a very mature gender approach. I don't know what guided it, because if I were to say what they could have done better, I think there was a good attention on the need to end violence, but I think there was a less emphatic or clearer understanding of the gender, what drives the gender dimension of gender-based violence. So they are young and they've got to grow and to learn more, and I think that's an area that I would recommend. Overall, I want to say that they were well poised, both in the research, the delivery, and the parliamentary decorum. And I have to say that they were very well supported. The whole gallery was filled, of course, parents and family members and well-wishers, but people are supporting these young leaders, taking an interest in them, following them, and I am pleased to see and thank and congratulate the nation for supporting the young leaders that are emerging among us and letting them know that not only are they loved and supported, but they are being held accountable. So thank you, Ministry of Youth. Thank you, Youth Parliament. Thank you, Senator Civil Francis. My last announcement is that on the 19th of May until the 22nd, Grenada was represented at the 22nd General Assembly of Parliamericas. Parliamericas is this organization, we've said, of all the parliaments of the Americas, from Uruguay right up to Canada, skipping the United States. US is not a member, but everyone else is. And this meeting was celebrating the 25th anniversary of the organization, though it was the 22nd General Assembly, Plenary Assembly. And it was held in Ottawa, which Canada is the major, most significant donor. The meeting had issued a declaration and a summary report. We're tweaking the summary report, and so both of these documents will be circulated to you early next week. But the outcome of it in large measure was a reaffirmation of the need to keep dialoguing, particularly around trade, around innovation, around care, around equality, around security. And it was held in the backdrop of the Canadian Prime Minister Carney, a statement that he made in Davos, Switzerland in January. It was a very powerful and revealing and transformative statement in which he announced that Canada will no longer, as he said, keep this sign in the window of international politics, a window, he said, that is not equitably occupied. And middle powers such as Canada, he announced, at least for Canada, are no longer willing to play the subaltern role, the junior role, in a system that is against their best interests. And I thought that that was quite useful in international relations, because this has been the point of the developing world for half a century. We've been saying the rules are rigged against us, the power grid is against us, the routes of trade, the laws and rules and regulations are generally against our sustainable development and against our best interests. Embargoes are against our best interests, sanctions, and the space for smaller powers has not been there. So perhaps Canada, as a middle power, a member of NATO, a member of G7, a member of the OECD, and so on, could actually help broaden that understanding that we need greater breathing space, greater democracy in international relations. So that was a backdrop, and the meeting reaffirmed the right of all parliaments to engage in the appropriate legislation, oversight, budgeting, and so on, that is appropriate to each country, the reaffirmation of sovereign rights of the peoples of the Americas. And on a more practical level, the meeting did agree to increases in fees, a small increase for Grenada, almost insignificant, but a small one from which we benefit enormously. I want to thank all those that are responsible for the meeting. We, as per usual, we were supported financially, both in travel and in accommodations for our participation. And Grenada spoke on trade and gender equality, and a highlight and treat was a youth panel and a panel of all the indigenous leaders, parliamentary leaders, indigenous people of Canada. So it was a good political and humanitarian and diplomatic moment. Thank you. This ends my announcements.
Item number 6, confirmation of minutes.
Honorable Senator the Honorable Adrian Thomas.
Good morning, Madam President, and good morning to your staff, to my colleagues on the other side, my colleagues here. Madam President, I respectfully move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Building, Mount Weldale, St. George, on Wednesday, the 6th of May, 2026, at 9 a.m., be taken as read.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber here at Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Wednesday, 6th May, 2026, be taken as read. All those in agreement say aye, and those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Senator the Honorable Adrian Thomas.
Madam President, I further move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Building, Mount Weldale, St. George, on Wednesday, the 6th of May, 2026, at 9 a.m., be confirmed.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held here at the Parliament Chamber in Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Wednesday, 6th May 2026, be confirmed. All those in agreement say aye. And those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the minutes are confirmed.
Item number 7, presentation of petitions. Item number 8, presentation of papers and reports from select committees.
Honorable Senator Adrian Thomas.
Madam President, I rise to present one report from selected committees. And this report is the Grenada Bureau of Standards Annual Report 2024.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable members, the Grenada Bureau of Standards Annual Report 2024 is laid. Thank you. Senator the Honorable Salim Rahman.
Good morning, Madam President, and good morning, colleagues and staff of Parliament. Just some brief comments on the report. The report is a 2024 audited report, and it is my hope that we could come up to speed with these reports. We ought to be reviewing a 2025 report as we are in 2026. The reports are good, but if they are too dated, then they're just for reference. And not any real change can be made because too much time has elapsed. From the report, we see that a few things I notice. In 2024, I notice that the inspection income has dropped by about 30%. I also noticed that the income, there is other income in 2023 was 65,000, and other income is 119,000 in 2024. If you have income of 119,000, it's significant. So it shouldn't be listed just as other. We want to know what is that income source. $100,000 a year is more significant, almost double what it was the year before. So that should be listed clearly as to what type of income that is. I also noticed that in their statement, in 2024, they processed 1,612 test requests. Within that same period, they did 1,539.
Thank you, Senator. Would you kindly refer to the page so we can follow you? Thank you.
Sure. 1 second. So I was speaking about on page where you have the income and expenditure statement of income and expenditure, and that, let me see what page that's on. That's on page 23, and that was under income.
Thank you.
So when you look at income, you see that there is a significant decrease in where it says pneumatic tire inspection income from 212,000 to 141. That's about a 30-something% decrease. Sorry for that year. Then when you look at also the material testing, you see that they decreased from 273,000 to 211,000. Where there is increases is in things like lab analysis from 193 to 248. So when I look at, scroll all the way up to page almost at the very beginning, you notice that they have in bold, let me see what page that is. Going all the way back up. Right. To page 5, under the executive summary. You notice that they said that tests process was 612. Now, tests are primarily done in labs, and inspections conducted is 1,539, and that's done usually in the field, because you go out and inspect people's products when it's coming in on the port. I noticed that when you go further down and you look at the staffing, so
we go back to page
you go
23.
further down, no, so from page 5, we go down to page, this computer is not, 1 second. Right. When you look at staffing, sorry, that is on page 3. You notice that the lab staff is about 10 people. And then you notice the inspection staff is only 3 people because 1 resigned. So you have almost the same level of work being done, 1,612 and 1,500 and something inspections, and 10 people are primarily doing the 1,600 figure, which is the test in the lab work, and then you have 3 people in the field because 1 resigned. So it tells me that more people are required for inspections in the field. And why I'm saying that is because you see a marked drop. So if there was 4 in 2023, and in this report there's 3, you can see a significant decrease in the amount of inspections, as I mentioned in the income statement. So that could be a direct result of staffing. And why is that important? Because when goods come in on the port, they need to be inspected before they can be cleared. So if there are not enough inspectors to do the job, and we know that port volumes every year, it has been consistently increasing by 6% every year. You could ask the Port Authority, that's their figures. So if you're having more goods coming in, that's something that I noticed that perhaps they need to look at in terms of the amount of inspectors that they have, which could have an impact on their earnings. And that's all for the report. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So the message you would like to convey to the Bureau of Standards is to get its staff, look, it could celebrate savings, okay, we don't dismiss that, but the point is not to celebrate or to save, but the point is to optimize the capacity for good inspection. I trust that that message has been conveyed and will be conveyed to the Bureau. Thank you, Senator Rahman. Senator Cox?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, just one thing I wanted to point out, and because we don't have anybody here who could probably respond to the document specifically, but I think it's important to note. Senator Rahman did spoke about resignation. There are actually 3 resignations, yeah, and 3 key positions for that matter. Just to note that. But what I wanted to raise most critically, there was an increase in bad debt from 14,000 plus to 33,000. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I didn't take a note of the page. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, but that was recorded and was just basically, I think it's important to, I just wanted to find out, like, what would have been the cause of that, why have such a sharp increase in bad debt during that period between 2023 to 2024. So I just wanted to highlight that, so it's something to take note of. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cox. Before I comment on it, I want to hear from you, Senator Rahman. Are you taking the floor again?
Madam President, there was one more thing. Thank you. There's one more thing that I forgot to mention. We see that in 2023, and this is on page, this is not seeing the pages. This is in the same income statement, so that's on page 23 under expenditure. When we look at the financials, we see that there's an accumulated surplus for the year brought forward. As a matter of fact, there was an accumulated surplus for 2023 and 2024, but 2024 is greater. And we see at the same time that the cash balance for 2023 and 2024 is about $1 million in the account. But yet, we see a loan figure, a loan interest rather, of $4,745 in 2024, but no figure in 2023. So that raised a question, because why is there loan interest not represented evenly across the years? Why is it that there is zero loan interest in 2023 and almost 5,000 loan interest in 2024? And then when I also look at insurance, I see that the insurance is almost $23,000 a year. That's more than half of electricity for the year. So I think that is quite, to me, that seemed quite high, that insurance figure. So maybe they might want to get some quotes and see how they could be more competitive in that area and bring those costs down. So that's all I had in addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I think these are, any other comments? Any other inquiries? So these are three substantive inquiries into the operations of the Bureau as reported in the report for 2024, plus a comment for more timely reporting. Now on these three substantive inquiries, last one being on insurance, I don't know what the rules allow, what the protocol is, but I would certainly be open to a conversation with the chair of the Bureau, it's called the chair, with his finance team, to meet, at least meet with me or with those of us who are interested in probing this report further. It is late today. The Senate, I'm sure, is accepting it, but would welcome an opportunity for a more in-depth conversation about this as a friendly, informative, but oversight function that we have to play. So I'll follow that up on your behalf, the three of you who have asked questions, or the three questions asked by the two of you. I see heads shaking. Thank you very much. I will proceed as such. Request a follow-up meeting.
Item number 9, questions to ministers. Item number 10, statements by ministers.
Senator, the Honorable Civil Francis, you've requested the floor and you are being offered the floor, Senator. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Madam President. Good morning to the Honorable House. Madam President, I wish to present some updates on behalf of the Ministry of Youth and Sports this morning, and also to just enlighten the public on some of the initiatives that we currently have ongoing that ought to be taken into consideration. Madam President, thank you so much for being present at the last Youth Parliament sitting. I think it's one that, that warranted the support of our senior government officials. And I also must place on record my sincere thanks to our colleagues who attended to show the young people their support, particularly in a time when we have, it's something that's ongoing, but based on the statistics, the unfortunate statistics that we've been met with this year as it relates to gender-based violence against our women, it was quite fitting. So I would like to report on the successful sitting of the National Youth Parliament on the, which happened on Tuesday, June 9th at this Honorable House. And the issue debated surrounded the involvement or the incorporation of gender-based violence into our school curricula, and also to engage police officers, judicial officers, and frontline service providers in Grenada to receive mandatory specialized training to ensure that gender-based violence cases are handled with sensitivity, fairness, and a survivor-centered approach. And that is quite important, Madam President. And furthermore, the debate surrounded, or the part of the resolution, was that the government of Grenada conduct a public safety review of existing laws governing self-defense tools and expand the list of approved self-defense tools, including and not limited to pepper spray, with appropriate safeguards against misuse and clear penalties for unlawful possession of or abuse of those safety defense tools. Madam President, and I was quite impressed by the presentation from our youth parliamentarians. And at the end, they were given a task to draft a policy to present to the government of Grenada what they would like to see from a youth perspective as it relates to gender-based violence. They were also asked to conduct zonal, as part of the constituency, ongoing constituency activities, to conduct zonal sessions to engage persons in self-defense mechanisms, whether it's through education or physical aspects. And Madam President, I sincerely thank the team at the Division of Youth who time after time continue to work with our youth parliamentarians to ensure that they get the support that they need, particularly their mentor and their guide, Dr. Tessa Sincere, who is also facilitating their ongoing training and engagement. Madam President, I also wish to bring some awareness to what is happening or upcoming within now and the next week. Madam President, we have the National Youth Awards ceremony, which will be taking place on Tuesday, the 16th of June, and it's under the theme, Legacy in Motion, Empowering Youth, Driving Transformation. Madam President, my memory is jogged to just yesterday when one of the nominees who actually would be receiving an award, when the call was made to her by one of the staff members, the tears that bathed her face when she recognized that she was being recognized at such level, on a national level, for something that she thought was insignificant. She was doing it, but she never realized the impact that what she was doing has on persons or young people across Grenada. And this is exactly why we're doing this, because we believe that when our young people receive the recognition that they deserve for the work that they are doing, it's enough to propel them to do more and to go beyond. And so, Madam President, we will have awards in different categories. If I just will share, we have entrepreneurship, innovation and professional excellence, arts, culture and creative economy, leadership, service and community development, environment, health and well-being, sports and physical achievement, And we also have some special awards that is not listed here as well. Madam President, I must sincerely thank the project steering committee and stakeholders who have been on board with us from the beginning of this National Youth Awards planning. I see how much they go above and beyond. Madam President, in fact, the project coordinator, I reached out to her yesterday and I said, at which point do you sleep? Because I see the messages and the emails coming in at 2 and 3 in the morning, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm still getting emails and so on from her. And she's doing a really, really wonderful job in keeping the team together and ensuring that all young people get the celebration and recognition that they deserve on Tuesday. We have launched last Friday the Holiday Recreation Program in collaboration with the National Sports Council, Camp Flame 3.0, which is what we call our Holiday Recreation Program. And this year, we are taking a different approach. It used to be on a parish basis, but what we've recognized when we've done it on the parish level only, it's a lot for the team to handle or the facilitators to handle at any given point. And so we've broken it down into constituencies. So every constituency will now have the implementation of the Holiday Recreation Program done there, which would be a bit more manageable and that more young people can participate. So that starts on the 16th to the 30th of July 2026, every day between Monday to Friday, that is from 8:30 to 2 p.m. And we have activities like arts and craft, dance, sports, drama, sewing, baking, music. We have facilitators now who are young persons participating in the program, and now they have grown to become facilitators. And that is just some of the testament that we have to why we're doing this. We have young persons who started small businesses. They're doing it in schools and so on because of the entrepreneurial training and so on that they receive at Camp Flame. So it's not just another holiday recreation program, but it's one that is geared towards getting our young people in the business mindset from very early. So we have persons who started baking and so on to be a part of that. We also have the Level Up Your Leadership training that's also upcoming on the 27th of June under the theme Lead Beyond the Badge, Elevating Self, Strengthening Teams. And that is from 9 to 4 p.m. at the Kirani James Stadium VIP Lounge, Madam President. And this one will be facilitated by Mr. Eddie Frederick, who is an image management consultant and human resource development training specialist. So we are ensuring that our young people, they receive the opportunities now, doing all the work in the background to build our leadership capacity amongst our young, be announced in short order. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you for sharing, Senator Francis, and do on our behalf congratulate all the Youth Leadership Award winners for their hard work and their selection, and our best wishes for their continued growth go to them through you and the ministry, and of course the Leadership Award team. Thank you. Senator Quince Britton, you've requested the floor. You have it, sir.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning to you and the staff of Parliament. And let me also join with you in welcoming Ms. Williams. Happy to have this for us to, advance our trade and so on, Madam President. We also had a wonderful performance from our brothers and sisters from Africa, especially the younger folks. I was thrilled. I stand there and I was watching on when I saw, such young performers, and as well as our Grenadian performers. We took children, or we got them from different groups and so on, especially those within our school programs in arts and in music and so on. It only shows, the strength, what those grassroots programs can do and open up opportunities for us, Madam President. So I would like to, place on record my thanks and appreciation to the staff and everyone who made it possible. Thank you very much, and we look forward for greater and bigger things to come in the years ahead. Madam President, also quickly, as we move forward into the 2026 Spice Mass season, because, as we say in local parlance, the things start. And we have had, from Spice Mass, we have had road shows, and so all those is to just build momentum. I'm pretty sure that you've seen on every Sunday in different pockets in the northern part of the island, especially, that you're seeing jab is being played. And whilst I know it's something that is cultural and so on, I still, and in just recently, the Royal Grenada Police Force did echo their sentiments of, people being responsible, not obstructing the flow of traffic and defacing public and other people's property. So I too want to echo the sentiments of whatever that we're doing, we do it responsibly, respect others, people who don't want to get dirty or they don't want the place, getting smeared with oil. You have to be more responsible than that. And also, if you're having an event, you must go through the proper channels to make sure that you have the requisite permission. That's how we will have an enjoyable and safe season, Madam President. So Spice Mass is moving on pretty nicely, Madam President, with all the activities. Every Friday in the month of June, we're doing Carnival City at Tantin Netball Court. And please remember, I just placing on record that the competitions, the deadlines would be very, very soon. And we continue our engagement with the general public as to what it is that is upcoming. I'm not the CEO, I'm just throwing out this, Madam President. So, also, Madam President, in the Ministry of Tourism, Minister, should I? Yeah, in the Ministry of Tourism, we've been doing a number of things. Most recently, Madam President, we had what we call a tourism symposium, and that's with different stakeholders looking at how we can make some more advancement on the product that it is that we offer, Madam President, and that was very fruitful, and I'm pretty sure the participants was very excited about it, and they look forward towards the implementation. Also, on that note, Madam President, we just want to let the general public be aware of some upgrades that are now taking place begun in the Granecton area. One, the Mon Labe Trail, that's directly behind the visitor's house. That trail is currently being worked on from the ministry's end, and as well as around the lake, the gazebos and so on that was there. So we're doing a number of upgrades to make it at least more friendly and more safe for the user. So please be guided accordingly. You may see some interruptions there if sometimes you get there and they tell you it's a construction zone. Please respect that. So we want to make sure that we get all those things done in a timely manner as we expect our visitors for Spice Mass season. They can have a wonderful experience up at the Granecton area. So, Madam President, here ends my brief greetings from the ministry. The weather is not too favorable for us. I can't bring no sunset greetings at this time, but I do hope that we have a nice short sit-in today. I realize the people who normally... Stop. All right. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for curtailing your statement at a good point. And on this carnival startup, thank you and your ministry for reminding revelers that not everyone is interested in reveling for 2 months. We set aside 2 days, I think, for it, or 3 days or whatever in August, and that's when the thing must start. And certainly the soiling of people and terrorizing children in the village and, you know, preying on all the snakes and frogs and so on, that shouldn't start at all. So thank you for keeping a close guard, and I'm encouraging people to enjoy themselves while paying heed to other people's rights. Thank you very much. Other ministerial statements? Then this ends ministerial statements. Thank you, ministers.
Item number 11, personal explanation.
Senator Joseph, you're struggling to get your button there?
Yes.
I think you found it. You have the floor, Madam Claudette Joseph. Welcome. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you graciously, Madam Chair. If you would just indulge me, I guess a little slow to the draw this morning, but I really just would like to take this opportunity to update the general public on one very important matter relating to my labor ministerial portfolio. Thank you, Madam.
So I take it this is a ministerial statement on the ministerial statement?
Yes, please, Madam President.
Proceed.
Thank you. Madam President, just very briefly to update the listening and viewing public, who I greet good morning, on a very important development in the field of labor in Grenada. In fact, according to the ILO's official Facebook page, when posting on this development, it referred to it as, and I quote, a big deal for Grenada. And so, Madam President, it would be really remiss of me if I were not to place on the Hansard and to update our people, those who for some reason might have missed it, that on 20th May 2026, Grenada launched its first ever Decent Work Country program, which would address various matters relating to improvement of the work environment, improvement for all stakeholders, workers, employers, and government, over the 5-year period, 2026 to 2031. And Madam President, in launching the program, Grenada joined just, I think, 3 or 4 other Caribbean countries who have already launched their program, including Belize, Barbados, and Suriname. So we are in fine company, Madam President. The Decent Work Country program is an initiative championed and sponsored by the International Labour Organization, and there are just about 70 countries of the world that have decent work country programs. And what this program does is that it allows for, through extensive tripartite process, a very extensive process involving government, employers, and workers, together with the ILO providing guidance and technical support, helps countries to identify and address key priorities for improving work conditions. When work conditions are improved, productivity is improved, the economy is enhanced, so that everyone benefits from a decent work, a focused decent work country program. And that's why in this launch that we hosted on the 20th of May, with the ILO team being present and participating, my cabinet colleagues, the Employers Federation and persons from the Chamber of Industry, and the workers' representatives, the TUC and all the unions were actually represented. We all appreciate, we all understand that this is a matter not just for workers' benefit, but for the industrial relations climate benefit overall. So as we negotiate with unions for improved wages and fringe benefits, as they negotiate with government and employers, as we collaborate on improvement of the minimum wage, we must also ensure that decent work overall, because decent work is not just about wages and salaries. Decent work overall is also promoted. What the key elements of this particular program comprise: we are seeking to align Grenada with the International Sustainable Development Goals and our own national priorities. We are seeking to focus on decent work. We are ensuring that we strengthen tripartite collaboration. The program, after conducting research, diagnostic and validation exercises, and consultations with stakeholders, some key priorities, 3 key priorities were identified that form the core and basis of our Decent Work Country program. The first one, Madam President, is enhanced governance, inclusion, and efficiency of Grenada's labor market. And under that priority, within the 5-year period, we are looking for a few outcomes. We are looking to achieve a few important things during the period of the program. The first outcome we are looking to achieve on the priority 1 is the enhanced national capacities and policy framework for coordinated labor governance and employment promotion. We are building a more productive workforce in achieving this outcome. The second outcome we're looking to achieve, Madam President, is national, legal, policy, and institutional framework that will strengthen and promote effective application of international labor standards, including the fundamental principles and rights at work. We do have quite a few of them already enshrined in our law, but there are areas in relation to which we still need to improve. And these fundamental rights, fundamental principles and rights at work include freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining. We already have that enshrined in our labor code, but at the Division of Labor, we find ourselves sometimes constantly having to remind stakeholders of this fundamental principle. And in fact, it is something that is enshrined in our own national constitution. We want to ensure that all forms of forced and compulsory labor are eliminated. And again, especially, and I would take the opportunity to place on record here, Madam President, what we are seeing from the Division of Labor as we face shortages, especially in the construction sector, and as contractors and construction companies seek to bring in or recruit labor from outside, we are finding ourselves of late having to deal with situations of exploitation. So we are having to find ourselves intervening in situations where some employers who bring in workers from other countries are engaging in exploitative practices. And so, Madam President, at the Ministry of Labor, as we focus on this Decent Work Country program, we will be enhancing our inspection capacity at the Ministry of Labor. We have established a proper inspectorate, which is working, which is why we are able to uncover some of the exploitation that unfortunately is taking place right here in Grenada with some of the companies that bring in foreign workers. We want to send a message out there that this will not be tolerated. And when we find criminal acts have occurred, we will refer the matter to the police. Because this is a troubling trend we are seeing now. Because people, vulnerable people, they move, they migrate, labor migrates, people want to acquire a better life. That's what they're doing. They want to acquire a better life for themselves and their families. And especially in the West, we are for the most part countries of immigrant populations, whether by force or by choice. And so when workers are allowed into the country by our authorities, our immigration authorities, the Division of Labor, who would issue them with work permits, we expect our locals to treat these workers with common dignity and respect the rights that they all enjoy once on Grenadian soil. Because every person in Grenada enjoy the fundamental rights and freedoms enshrined in Chapter 1 of our Constitution. So, this is a very important element for us as we pursue the Decent Work Country program. We also are focusing on effective abolition of child labor. And by the way, tomorrow, 12 June, will mark the International Day Against Child Labor. If you're following our ministry's page, you would see for the week we have been running messages in relation to child labor, because we are acknowledging the day tomorrow, but we thought we would do it over the week. Elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation, that's another fundamental principle, and rights at work, and a safe and healthy working environment for all. And in this regard, under the program, Madam President, we hope during the currency of the program, and not too far from now, we would come to this Honorable House with legislation dealing with occupational safety and health. The next outcome, Madam President, that we hope to achieve under Priority 1 of the DWCP is enhanced policies, data, and employment services for inclusive labor market development. And Madam President, in this regard, we are seeking to establish a public employment services for Grenada that would help job seekers and employers alike. And I am pleased to say to this Honorable House that already this is one aspect of the DWCP that we are advanced with, because we have already gotten the technical support from the ILO and have done much of the work that will lay the foundation for the establishment of the public employment services. That will help job seekers and employers in that the Public Employment Services Agency will be a centralized agency and have a centralized database that will allow employers looking for workers to feed the information into that database and to work with the agency, and workers out there, potential employees out there, to do the same. So both sides would feed their information. So you're looking for a job, you feed your CV and your information into the Public Employment Services database, and the employers do the same, and the system will match the needs on both sides. So the system will help the employer find the right worker, and it will help the potential employee find the right placement. This we know would be of significant benefit to our country going forward. The fourth outcome we are looking to, Madam President, is the quality and relevance of TVET, enhancing the quality and relevance of TVET so that the transition from training to labor market is aligned, and is aligned particularly with our national priorities and the needs of the labor market. And this as well, Madam President, will gel very well with the government's program that it recently rolled out under the Ministry of Education with the Youth Transformational Skills Program, which is going to be rolled out in September. I think that's the plan. But I don't want to speak for the Minister for Education. And so this would be a great marrying of efforts, and it would show how government policies come together, because enhancing quality and relevance of TVET is a key outcome that we are looking for under the Decent Work Country program. Madam President, priority 2 under the Decent Work Country program would be expanded offer of decent work opportunities through increased formalization, productivity, and tripartite cooperation. And under this priority, that's second priority, we are looking for 3 main outcomes of the program. We would like to see, at the end of the program, national capacities and systems to support small businesses development and promote formalization are strengthened. So we want to see, that is something we'll have to work on, to see that when our small businesses start up, they succeed and ultimately thrive. And so we aim to develop and implement business development support services, especially for key economic sectors and enterprise segments. And in that regard, we would establish a dedicated support services for small business formalization and implementation. Outcome number 2 we are looking to achieve under the second priority is to strengthen enable environment for cooperatives development and performance. And we are already in communication with the ILO for some training in that regard, for some stakeholder training in that regard. And then outcome number 3, tourism and hospitality sector demonstrates an increased formalization, productivity, and improved working conditions. Madam President, we do have quite an informal economy in Grenada, and a lot of the workers in the tourism sector are informal workers. They're not centralized, they're not represented by a collective bargaining agent. They're not organized in a structured way as we see with other categories of workers. And we are trying to reduce the percentage of our informal economy under the Decent Work Country program. Finally, Madam President, priority number 3 under the program, we hope at the end of the program to have inclusive, rights-based social and labor protections through strengthened social partnership and tripartism. And in relation to this, we would like to see as outcome number 1, enhanced working conditions and protections at work. So we will do, in this regard, this is where the OSH legislation will come in, because the OSH legislation will ensure that there is enough protections and appropriate working conditions at work. And again, I'm happy to say that all stakeholders are on board with us in this regard. Outcome number 2, we would like to see, Madam President, national capacities and institutional mechanism for dispute prevention and resolution strengthened. And this is something we have been, even before the launch of the Decent Work Country program, as we settle the revamp of the labor code that we have been working on for the last 2 years, this, Madam President, I will confess to this honorable House, is the sticking point. We are at a point where we're ready to go. We have the policy document. We even advanced the draft legislation and so, but we are not at item as yet. All the tripartite partners are not at item as yet on what the new dispute resolution mechanism will look like. Even after some intervention and technical support and guidance from the ILO dispute resolution experts. So we are working on that. We have developed a great and cordial and respectful working relationship with all the stakeholders, and we want to preserve and maintain that. So we are working on that aspect to find common ground. So I'll let the nation know this is one of the reasons why we have not yet come to Parliament with the amendments to the Labour Code that we have been speaking of for the last 18 or so months. That is a little piece we need to sort out. Madam President, again, in relation to this, I'm happy to say that already we have secured some technical support from the ILO in relation to training stakeholders in dispute resolution methods and best practices. And that is going to happen very soon, perhaps as early as July, Madam President. So the Decent Work Country program is already in motion. The other outcome we would like to see, Madam President, is increased institutional, technical, and representational capacity of employers and workers' organizations. So we would like to see the Employers Federation, somehow the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the business community, generally more engaged, and same too with the other two tripartite partners, government and unions. We want to keep building capacity. Madam President, and finally, outcome number 4, an adaptive, universal, and rights-based social protection system is progressively realized. So these are the matters we want to focus on in this 5-year period of the Decent Work Country program. Some may say, Madam President, this appears to be too ambitious, but no. As I have pointed out, some of the matters to be covered under the program, we are already very advanced with the work. So we know this is a program, once we keep working at it, it will succeed, it will bear fruit, and in 5 years' time, we will see a completely different workspace, industrial relations climate, even more improved than we are enjoying today. And Madam President, we are able to embark on these matters because we were able to successfully, since 2022, settle vexing issues that affected stakeholders, workers, whether it's salary, whether it's dock salaries, whether it's minimum wage, whether working conditions. We were really able to work hard at these matters, whether it's regularization, pensions, all the matters that hindered progress and hindered our country from taking labor and labor relations to the next level. We were able to resolve these so that we can focus on these more progressive, high-level matters that would really and tangibly enhance the lives of all our stakeholders. So, Madam President, I would just like to thank the workers' representatives in the Labor Advisory Board, the Trades Union Council, and also thank profusely the Employers Federation and their representative on the Labor Advisory Board, because the point of contact really to develop all of this was through. We used the Labor Advisory Board to get all this done. And of course, that board is chaired by our Labor Commissioner, who is very hardworking and passionate about what she does. And in that regard, Madam President, I would report, we see Senator Lewis is absent today, and that is because, Madam President, at present, Grenada's delegation is fully participating in the ILC, the International Labour Conference. And Madam President, we have significantly benefited from our participation in the conference since last year, well, the year before, 2024, from our rekindled relationship with the ILO. All of these things that we are able to achieve with the ILO support is because we rekindled the relationship. We took up our seat at the table because we always had the seat, but we were not sitting in it and making our presence felt. That's what we are doing now, Madam President. We are at the ILC. Our Labor Commissioner is head of delegation for Grenada. The delegation also includes Brother Andre Lewis, representing workers, and Sister Abina Peters, representing employers. And they are doing a fantastic job, Madam President. Grenada was selected or elected by our CARICOM colleagues to lead CARICOM at the ILC on the issue of the platform economy. The International Labour Organization is now working on a new convention that will treat with workers on the platform economy, that's online workers. And Grenada is leading that, speaking on behalf of CARICOM as they iron out the convention and making very relevant interactions. So, Madam President, I would like to just, with your permission, read a text message that I received from my ministerial colleague from Barbados, Mr. Colin Jordan, very, very well respected in the international labor space. And he sent me this text message on Tuesday. He said, "Good morning, Claudette. This is to say hi, and also to say that Sparkle, who is our Labor Commissioner, and her deputy are doing an excellent job." Madam President, in order to build capacity, I took the decision this year, because we can only go with 4. Not that we can only go with 4, based on our constraints, so that my friends on the other side don't say we spending taxpayers' money, only traveling. We decided we go with 4. And so normally it's the minister, the Labor Commissioner, the representative from the workers, and the representative from employers. And under the International Labour Organization Convention, government must pay fully for participation of all delegates in the ILC. So we meet all the expenses. So this year we decided I would stay back, let the Labor Commissioner lead the delegation, and give the Deputy Labor Commissioner an opportunity to gather the experience and have and we're talking about strengthening capacity. So the Deputy was given my spot. Labor Commissioner bumps up to head of delegation. And so my colleague said, this is to say hi, and also to say that Sparkle and her deputy are doing an excellent job. They are representing CARICOM really well. They are speaking and even moving sub-amendments. So when that convention comes out next year, Grenada will be written all over it. They are moving sub-amendments. Other groups are going to them to caucus and discuss. Other countries, and bigger ones too, other groups are going to them to caucus and discuss. I am really proud. This is what the Barbadian Minister for Labor sent me on Tuesday. So I would just like to congratulate our team who will continue to shine and have us stand out at the ILC. The commissioner, in my stead, addressed the plenary yesterday, and Mr. Andre Lewis addressed the day before. And I understand they both did a fantastic job and made Grenada proud. So, Madam President, on that note, I thank you kindly for your indulgence. Thank you.
And I thank your colleague. I thank you and I thank your colleagues for their patience. And I certainly retroactively give you permission to quote, to read. And I also I'm sure that our colleagues will agree that you have earned bragging rights that you could show off this morning. And your staff member who is here and all the people in the Ministry of Labor, we want to congratulate them on getting Grenada included in this big deal of decent work, the Decent Work Country program, which I've been hearing about for a decade or so in the context of the climate change transition, what would happen to workers. I'm glad for all the things that you mentioned is happening, particularly Grenada representing CARICOM abroad and so on. But I think the significance of this Decent Work Country program is that it can, in fact, transform the standard, living standard for workers. That I look forward to, as well as transforming it, meaning improve the quality of work and the work environment in Grenada. All of us are workers. We are all workers, and some are working under better conditions than others. And for those who are working under less favorable conditions, we certainly look forward over the 5 years to the Decent Work Country program, fulfilling what it said, decent work, from salary to conditions to impact and the like. Thank you, Ministry of Labor. Other ministerial statements? This brings an end to it now, I believe. Thank you, and it's closed.
Item number 11, personal explanations. Item number 12, motions. Item number 13, bills.
I wish to offer the floor to Senator the Honorable Adrian Thomas, a leader of government business in the Senate.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I beg to introduce the first reading for a bill for an act shortly entitled Advanced Passengers Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026.
A bill which seeks to establish provisions, in accordance with international best practices for the collection, transmission, sharing, and storage and regulation of advanced passenger information and passenger name record in respect of persons departing, arriving, or transiting through Grenada, shortly entitled Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026.
Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Thank you. Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting. All those who are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
And of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Senator Adrian Thomas.
Madam President, I beg to move that the second reading of the bill be taken at this time.
Excuse me. Honorable members, the question is that the bill proposes that the bill be read a second time. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, this is a very important bill that we are about to discuss here today. The Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026. Madam President, this bill has national, also regional and international significance as Grenada continue to make its mark in this global village. And so this bill is part of our continued commitment, Madam President, to strengthen our border security, to continue protecting our people, and improving our national security systems, and also, and most importantly, to continue deepening our cooperation with our CARICOM partners. Madam President, as was outlined by the Clerk of Parliament, it also places Grenada in alignment with international best practices in quite a few areas like the collection, transmission, management, sharing, storage, and protection of advanced passenger information and passenger name record data. There is no doubt that Grenada is highly involved in the movement of people by both air and sea. And this, Madam President, as I stand here today, with the portfolio, the Ministry of Tourism, the Creative Economy and Culture, the whole question of movement of people by air and sea is very essential to tourism and trade. And apart from that, we also have to take into consideration our family connections. The whole question of regional integration. And as Maurice Bishop said on the subject of our international airport for our own economic growth. So it is essential that we pay particular attention to this very important bill. However, Madam President, in today's world, the free and safe movement of people must be supported by strong systems that help our authorities to identify risk, prevent serious crime, combat terrorism, protect our borders, and support law enforcement in a lawful and responsible manner. Madam President, This particular bill has been functioning since 2007. So it has been a pretty long time. It took us to bring it here. And so this bill, as it is about to be presented before this Honorable Senate, builds on the existing CARICOM Advanced Passenger Information System. Its main purpose, Madam President, is to propose a modernized framework for the collection and use of passenger information relating to persons arriving into our country, related to persons departing from our country, or transiting through Grenada by whatever means, air, sea, as we have access to. But importantly, Madam President, this bill does not only address the question of security, it also provides some level of safeguard for confidentiality. Welcome to the season. I think the farmers will be happy. It also, Madam President, provides for data protection and redress when necessary, and also for the responsible use of the information. Madam President, this bill clearly establishes the role of the authority and the various units that will be formed, that is required to be formed, like the Passenger Information Unit. And it also establishes, Madam President, the role for the data protection officers. And while Grenada is thinking of preserving and protecting our border and our security, the bill also respects the privacy of individuals. And I think this is very important, because sometimes when bills are being presented to this House or laws are being constructed, there is some notion that it will put more pressure on the ordinary man, but the ordinary man do have a say, Madam President. And so, Madam President, this bill has 8 parts and 7 schedules. And the 8 parts of this bill, Madam President, address the following: preliminary matters, administrative arrangements, common provisions for advanced passenger information and passenger name record data, specific operating provisions for advanced passenger information and passenger name record, administrative fines, exchange of information with participating states, and miscellaneous provisions. While these schedules provide important technical details, including timelines for submission and the specific data elements required. Madam President, as I proceed to present this bill I will be presenting it part by part. I invite this Honorable House to view this bill as something that is necessary and very timely measured. And also, Madam President, to inform this House that this bill is designed to strengthen Grenada's national security architecture, support regional cooperation through CARICOM, improve our ability to address risk before passengers arrive or depart, and to ensure that sensitive data is handled with appropriate safeguards. Madam President, I say all of this to give a synopsis in terms of where this bill is taking us. And so, as I said before, this bill has 8 parts. And approximately 44 clauses. Madam President, Part 1 of this bill has 3 clauses, and it sets out the basic framework. Number 1, it provides the short title and commencement of the Act. Number 2, it defines key terms used throughout the legislation and explains the scope of application. The bill, in number 3, the bill applies to the collection, the use, the retention, transfer, and protection of advanced passenger information and passenger name record data by the competent authority. And CARICOM through IMPACT, Implementation Agency for Crime and Security within CARICOM. Madam President, Part 2, which contains 4 clauses, establishes the administrative structure required to implement the Act. It sets out the powers and functions of the authority, including the responsibility for overseeing the implementation. Part 2 also sets standards and technical requirements, ensuring secure transmission and storage of data, and it also conducts its own audits. Madam President, there's also provisions for verifying passengers and crew information at ports of entry and departure. Madam President, Part 2 also establishes the Passenger Information Unit, which include senior immigration leadership and relevant officers from immigration, police, customs, and data protection. This unit, Madam President, will be responsible for receiving, storing, processing, and analyzing and managing advanced passenger information and passenger name record data for purposes such as national security and the prevention, detection, investigation, and prosecution of terrorism and serious crime. And very important, Madam President, Part 2 further provides for the Data Protection Officer, who is required to operate independently and ensure compliance with data protection laws and standards. Part 3, Madam President, contains 8 clauses, and it sets out provisions that apply to both advanced passengers information and passenger name record data. Madam President, it places a duty on the master, the captain, or the agent of the vessel or the aircraft, whatever means of transport that is being used, to provide the required passenger, crew, flight, or voyage data to the competent authority and implementation agency for crime and security within CARICOM. This part, Madam President, also deals with the whole question of confidentiality and non-disclosure obligation. And there, we are taking into consideration the rights of every individual. It allows disclosure only in specific circumstances, such as when required by law or court order, where necessary for the purpose for which the data was collected, or where needed to safeguard national security, public safety, or the prevention and detection of serious crime. Madam President, Part 3 also outlines the purpose for processing advanced passenger information and passenger name record data, including risk assessment of passengers and crew before arrival or departure, and responding to requests from competent authorities in specific cases involving terrorism or serious crime. Madam President, this part also provides for screening against watch lists and approved national, regional, and international databases, and it also sets rules for showing data with other countries, including safeguards where the receiving country has a lower level of data protection. Madam President, Part 4 contains 6 clauses. And this part deals specifically with the operation of advanced passenger information. Madam President, it outlines and it requires that the captain, master, or the agent of the means of transport, the aircraft or vessel, arriving in or departing from or transiting through Grenada to transmit advanced passenger information data to the competent authority and impacts through the CARICOM electronic manifest single window. Madam President, this part also gives the competent authority powers to question relevant persons, including captains, masters, agents, crew members, and passengers, and to request documents related to those questions. Very important. At the same time, Madam President, the minister may waive advanced passenger information requirement in limited circumstances, including for military or law enforcement aircraft or vessels, official government businesses, or humanitarian operations. The minister do have that leverage. This part, Madam President, also provides for alternative electronic submissions where timelines cannot be met. It allows individuals to request access to their own advanced passenger information data to verify accuracy and addresses retention and the duty to provide advanced passenger information data in accordance with the Act. Part 5, Madam President, contains 13 clauses. And it specifically addresses the operating framework for passenger name record data. It outlines the obligation of aircraft and vessel operators, including captains, masters, and agents, to transfer passenger name record data. It also deals with the method, format, and time frame for transmission. Madam President, this part includes provisions and automated processing of passenger name record data. And it outlines a number of areas such as the protection against improper use of sensitive data, retention of data, depersonalization of data. It also provides for national oversight to address mechanisms, contraventions at the port, and the handling of conflict of law relating to transmission of passenger name record data. Part 6, Madam President, contains 12 clauses, and it creates an administrative enforcement system for certain contraventions of the Act. Madam President, Part 6 provides for written notices of administrative fines. And at the same time, Madam President, it recognizes the rights of affected persons who will be able to make representations, to have hearings, to have appeals and correction of data, of decisions. Madam President, Part 6 also addresses absolute liability, the amount of administrative fines, deadlines for payments, recovery of fines, payment into the consolidated fund, and the limitation period for enforcement. Madam President, Part 6 covers all those very important elements. Within Part 7, there are 3 clauses, Madam President, and it provides for the exchange of passenger name record data between Grenada and other participating states. It allows the authority or passenger information units to transfer passenger name record data from other participating states where necessary. Madam President, this part also supports regional cooperation and strengthens the ability of participating states to respond to threats involving terrorism, serious crime, and border security. Part 8, last part, Madam President, contains 6 clauses. and which deals with the miscellaneous provisions. Generally, and it is there to support other provisions within the bill. Madam President, it includes the requirement for electronic submission of information, immunity from liability, non-imposition of penalties in certain circumstances, regulation-making powers, amendment of schedules, repeal provisions, and consequential amendments to the Immigration Act, Chapter 145. Madam President, as I mentioned before, the bill contains 7 schedules, which sets out the timeline for electronic submission of passenger name record data by a master agent or a vessel. Madam President, Schedule 1 deals with the timelines for electronic submission of passenger name record data by a master agent of a vessel. Schedule 2 deals with passenger name record data elements. Schedule 3 deals with advanced passenger information data elements and embarkment and disembarkment data elements. Schedule 4 sets out the time frame for submission of advanced passenger information and embarkation and disembarkation data. Schedule 5 outlines timelines for electronic submission of passenger name record data by a captain or agent of an aircraft. Schedule 6 deals with data element to be submitted under the Convention on Facilitation on International Maritime Traffic. And the last, Schedule 7, deals with consequential amendments to the Immigration Act, Cap 145. Madam President, in conclusion, I believe that this bill is necessary. I believe that it is timely. And I believe that it will strengthen Grenada border management. I also believe, Madam President, that it will strengthen our own security, nationally, regionally, and it will ensure that the necessary passenger information is collected, used, shared, and very much so protected in keeping with proper legal safeguards and international best practices. Madam President, this bill definitely supports our collective responsibility to protect our people, to protect our visitors, to protect our borders, while ensuring accountability, confidentiality, and respect for individual rights. Madam President, I therefore commend the Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026 to this Honorable House for full consideration, discussion, and debate. I thank you.
I thank the Leader of Government Business in the Senate for his presentation of the bill. Senator, the Honorable Nolan Cox, you have the floor, Senator.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I stand to make some contributions to the bill before us, which is the Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026. Before I proceed, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Mrs. Williams to this honorable place. As my colleague, Senator Britton, indicated, this is the most interesting house of the Parliament of Grenada, undoubtedly. I'm sure all members will share the same view. And I'm not sure what her tenure is, but you're always welcome to be part of this honorable house. So thank you very much for being here with us today to ensure that the Parliament functions appropriately. Madam President, as opposition, just want to underscore, we recognize the importance of border security and, of course, compliance with international standards and best practices. Because of ever-changing, ever-evolving situations in the world, countries like ours or our partners, CARICOM, we all have to do what is required to protect ourselves, to minimize risk, to minimize incident. You know, the whole issue of terrorism and all those things are prevalent in today's world for all these geopolitical actions that have been taken, decisions, policy decisions. Those things have implications. And so for decades now, I think since the incident of 9/11, everything has changed. And so we do recognize the importance of this legislation. And it is my belief that this bill is somewhat retroactive, because I'm quite certain passenger information has already been shared with a lot of countries. I'm quite certain about that. If persons believe that that is not the case, I tell you, I beg to differ. All passports are machine readable. Once you swipe those, the information goes ahead of you. So it's already happening, and so this bill comes just to formalize and to legislate what is already happening. But, Madam President, my response to this is basically to highlight maybe some of the possible risk, and of course, because of the nature of this bill, unintended consequences that may arise from the passage of this bill. And one of the first things I want to highlight, Madam President, this is going to be a massive collection of data. A lot of data is going to be collected. And I think that in itself is a risk, just thinking about it. So this bill will basically give authorization for collection, storage, analysis, and sharing and transferring of extensive personal travel information for every passenger, crew entering or leaving the state of Grenada. And that is what is taking place in a nutshell. Every citizen, every visitor is treated as a potential risk. That is what this bill is basically saying to us. My position on this, Madam President, as I said, while we support national security, I am not quite certain, and maybe the whole issue of constitutional rights and privacy of citizens may, at some point in time, there might be some gray area, and the Attorney General may be able to expand on that, or even my luminary colleague may be able to expand on that. Because people do have concerns, and while safety is something that we cannot really get away from, ensuring the safety of everybody, but there are gray areas, and sometimes there might be possible overreach. So because, I mean, this is a broad window in terms of collecting information. Second area I wanted to highlight, Madam President, I think this has to do with the data retention period. That is on section 28.2. Yeah, section 28.2. Basically, this data is going to be collected and stored for a period of 7 years. That is what this bill is indicating. It's quite a long time for personal data to be collected and stored, and the whole issue of whether or not the infrastructure is there to ensure that that data is kept safe, I think is one that we have to look at. While the bill also indicates after some 6 months, it will depersonalize information collected, but it still doesn't take away the fact that the information is going to be still in the hands of the competent authority. So what is happening there is it's a broad spectrum, collecting data for everybody traveling, every time you move in and out of this country. And the question is, do we have the capacity? I'm not certain what the infrastructure is like in terms of we being able to store and manage this data. I think the bill didn't speak clearly exactly as to where the data is going to be stored, maybe for obvious reasons. I do know Impacts is involved, CARICOM is involved, but the whole issue of this collection and storage of this data, I think, is one that will be of concern for persons. So just wanted to underscore that. As I said, something that is already happening, Madam President, the sharing of information. Basically, this bill permits information to be shared with international organizations, regional organizations. So it places significant trust in foreign agencies, while I believe that it doesn't show limited protection for Grenadian citizens. So that information going out there, we are basically asking or hoping and putting trust into those organizations to manage that information and to use it in the best way that is required based on the law. I'm not certain if there is anything much we can do about it based on how things are structured in the world today, Madam President. The presenter of the bill didn't say much, but I believe this is a harmonized legislation that other countries in CARICOM will have to pass as well. There might be other requirements, international and otherwise, but this basically is, you're basically placing a lot of trust in organizations, foreign organizations and institutions, without little or no comfort for persons here. It is something that we just have to deal with, but I just want to highlight it for what it's worth. I think it's important for us to understand the risk associated with this. The bill do have some issue of safeguards, and I must admit that. It also permits disclosure of confidential information for broad reasons. And I think that is where the challenge is. Broad reasons: national security, public safety, serious crime investigation. These terms are basically broad, and there is a risk that where data collected for one purpose can later be used for another because of this broad terminology. So I think that is something that we have to pay attention to. As a consequence, as I say, of this bill, there are some things that we have to contend with. Yeah, so I think that is one of the areas, Madam President, in terms of the weakness. Privacy protection probably should be a little bit stronger in terms of collecting personal information. But as I said, the purposes for the collection of information, the terminologies are very much broad, Madam President. There is an an issue because this operation, this setting up of this, the implementation of this bill, Madam President, will bring some costs on government to operationalize it. And of course, the establishment of a passenger information unit that is stated, passenger information unit, Madam President. So this basically is an expense. I don't see this unit as one where a revenue generating unit, but it will be an expense unit in the sense that persons are with there to collect, to monitor, to analyze, and to feedback. While this is very important, government may want to, Madam President, look at the possibility of getting some grant support in setting up this unit because it's a unit that will be an expense unit for government and not a revenue generating one for the country. While the whole issue of safety, I cannot really put a value on it, a dollar value on it, but at the same time, it will have a cost, financial cost for the operation of this unit, Madam President. I just wanted to highlight that. Yeah. I mean, the bill doesn't bring to Parliament any financial implications to see how much it's going to cost for setting up this unit and other expenses associated with this legislation. But I know that there will be, based on what is before us. There is a possibility, and I stand corrected, because the bill indicates that every vessel or aircraft traversing in and out of this country will be subjected to this bill, where be it passengers, be it cargo. And so I am thinking about the small trade that takes place between the neighboring countries, even small fishing vessels that traverse between islands. They are now implicated based on this bill once passed and implemented, because fishing vessels do carry cargo, they do have crew, and so they are now subjected to that. So there might be some impact for those small operators with the passage of this legislation, and it may affect them in some way in terms of cost. There might be some cost for those operators. So persons who do move from island to island, either for trade or for fishing purposes, they are now subject to this, and they may have some implications for them to look at in terms of the operational costs going forward. So just wanted to underscore that. And most of the times when we pass this bill, people think it's just maybe the plane or the cruise ship or maybe a cargo ship coming to the port, not understanding that this is very much far-reaching, and it has heavy consequences, because if you're looking at the penalties, administrative fees are up to $20,000 US. And so I think there may be a requirement for our small operators and fishing vessels who may sometimes go to Barbados, who sometimes go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to be aware of this, and just to ensure that they do not in any way break the law as regards to the penalties. Madam President, in section 52.1, which is immunity from liability, while I understand the intent of this section, which looks at the staff who is involved in actually collecting the data and processing the data, they will be immune from liability. Madam President, it also begs for us to acknowledge that it's human beings that we're dealing with. They are the ones that are actually processing the data. The question is, if a staff also were to contravene and share data inappropriately or against the law, they may have some immunity from liability in that respect. So I wanted to underscore this as a weakness. I know they're trying to protect staff who may, a passenger sometime may file a lawsuit or so that may come against the unit. And so it's an intent to protect the staff. But public officers must remain accountable when handling sensitive data. And as human beings, somebody may intentionally share data that they're not supposed to. And the question is, what are the repercussions for such? I haven't seen anything specifically in the legislation that deals with that, but it affords for immunity from liability for persons who are handling the data. So I just wanted to raise that as some critical points to note, Madam President, and all this is the intention to improve the bill, to strengthen the bill, to encourage fairness for everybody who is involved, all stakeholders, because this bill is very intrusive. Sometimes we take things for granted, but it is very intrusive. While it has a positive intention, there are also risks for very negative impacts on ordinary citizens. So with these few contributions, Madam President, I rest at this point in time. Thank you.
I thank you, Senator Cox, for your comments, your observations, and I wouldn't say admonitions, but certainly cautions identified. Thank you. Government side, I offer the floor to Quince Britton, Senator from the West.
Thank you, Madam President. I too would just like to join. Just give me a, sorry. Yes, so Madam President, I too would like to join with in giving support to the bill as presented by Leader of Government Business. Madam President, just give me 1 second here. I seem to have lost some of the notes.
We move on to someone else and come back to you?
I can. Yes, I could.
Yes. Did you not know you were the next speaker? Did you know you were the next speaker or not?
No, we was contemplating, Madam President, but as I accidentally shut it off.
All right. Fair enough.
But Madam President, since I'm already on the floor, so in the absence of my notes, I too just want to join in supporting the bill as presented by a previous presenter, and I also would like to say thank you to the leader on the opposition side of giving support to the bill as well, Madam President. And as you rightly said, that it will help to enhance our border security, Madam President, and it's not unique to Grenada. You see other countries in CARICOM, including our neighbors in Trinidad and Antigua and Barbuda, has similar legislation, Madam President. With all what's happening and so on in the world right now, Madam President, it's very important that we have those information, or we make use of those information beforehand, so we can better protect and secure our borders, Madam President, from any form of terrorist act, or some people who may not be the best set of passengers that we might want, to our shows. So, as I stated, Madam President, I had some notes, but I accidentally. So I just want to give support, and I asked my other colleagues to record the support, so I'll give support to the bill as presented by the leader of government business on this side. So thank you, and I give my full support to the bill.
Thank you, Senator, for your support and your appeal to your colleagues. Thank you. Senator Rahman, you have the floor, Senator.
I thank you, Madam President, and I also too would like to take the opportunity to welcome Mrs. Williams. I wrote it down and I forgot to mention it. So a few things. This is something that, in order to enable ease of traveling, not having to fill out copious forms as we used to have to do in the past, these forms of legislation are necessary. And it is true that a lot of our information is already out there when we travel internationally by countries that have passed legislation such as this and others in advance, way in advance. We heard, I believe, from the leader of government business that this sort of legislation has been around since 2007. Where my concern lies, so first of all, I want to point out something that I saw on page 33, or rather didn't see on page 33. So I'll give you so page 33, it would be the duty to provide API data in accordance with the Act. It says on subsection 7, a passenger or crew member who contravenes this section, who contravenes subsection 6. Where is subsection 6? I couldn't see it. So you have subsection 5, you have 5, and then it goes to 7. So it is citing something that doesn't exist. So when we go into these houses and we pass, something simple as that, even though we generally agree with the intention and the purpose of this legislation, when we omit a subsection, I don't know what that subsection says, and then I'm asked to support it. Right? And we ain't come here for that. So proofing of these documents, even though it's 72 pages, is still important because some of us need to read it. So that's one thing that I found missing in mine. Maybe it's not so in others. If it is in mine alone, then I'm subject to correction. Then I move on to, my concern was that, as it relates to charges, when somebody has committed a crime, we spoke here in this house about not being labeled forever because you commit a crime after you have served your time and paid your due. So my concern in reading this was, after you put on a list, is your name going to come off the list? Who is taking it off? We have no control after information is sent. And this document makes it clear that that we have no control. We only have control over Grenada, or at most within CARICOM. But the document says, as far as we are concerned, that the information expires after 7 years, which is a good thing. And it also says that there will be a deletion of the record. That is on page 37, so that everybody can follow. For those of you who wish to follow. On page 37, under PNR, the heading is PNR data and document retention. So under item subsection 3, A and B, it says that it expires after 7 years, and the other B says that after judgment has been given So after you've been sentenced or judgment has been given, then there will be a deletion. There will be, what does it say here? Depersonalization is what they use, yes. So that means it will be striked off of your record, which is also a good thing. Another good thing is, no, that's not depersonalization. Depersonalization is further down on page 38. That's another good thing. But that says within 6 months that it will be, yeah, on the bottom of page 38, depersonalization of PNR data, it says that within 6 months or after 6 months, the data will be depersonalized. But that only applies to us. So you wouldn't know who. It will just, the data will be kept for purposes of travel information. We know how many people move in here and move in there, which is good and useful. So this is something that's very positive. The only thing is that, the only negative is that we don't have control that it will be depersonalized in countries that have not signed on to this same legislation, or countries that we share the information with. So where it is possible, the authority that is given this information, when the person has been sentenced, or when the 6 months have passed, and there is no issue, we would also like the authority to pay attention to request the authorities that they may have given the information to please remove this from your record. That person has been cleared in our system. I think that is something that should be done to make sure that names are cleared in the same way that it is put onto some database, it is cleared and becomes anonymous. In page 52, under Schedule 2, under Schedule 2, page 52, item number, or subsection number 12, it has general remarks. So general remarks can be taken, including all available information on unaccompanied children less than 18 years of age. Why is that necessary? Why, if somebody is traveling, information about their children who is at home needs to be submitted into this database? For what purpose? I have a problem with that. And so, I mean, it may be part of the legislation throughout, but I don't see the reasoning behind this. I don't see good reason for this. All of it is, most of it is good. I mean, it is necessary in the world we live in today, as already pointed out, right? But in terms of the, including unaccompanied children less than 18 years of age, minors and so on, I don't see the benefit of that. And finally, my last concern is that we know that systems of immigration and visas and so on have been used in decades gone by to limit the movement of some people from undesirable territories like Africa and so on in the past. Whereas there's been a general disconnect between the Caribbean and Africa that is now reconnecting by God's mercy. So we have to make sure that we guard against any weaponizing of this system where people can be controlled into coming, who we allow to come in and go out. Other than that, Madam President, the only real issue I have here is with the children, page 52, Schedule 2, having under general remarks, including all available information on unaccompanied children and so on. That's the only thing that I think that should not be there. But other than that, it is something that is necessary It is something that, you know, we live in a global village and a digitalized world, and it is something that we support. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rahman, for issues raised. Thank you. Senator Civil Francis, you have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise briefly to lend my support to the presentation made by my colleagues this morning. Madam President, I am at the very core of this legislation. I believe that it is about ensuring that Grenada, our broader management system, keeps pace with the realities of a modern world, and not just a modern world, but an interconnected world as well. And the reality is that the security threats that may present itself does not wait until a person arrives at our shores. And so it is important that something like that, a measure like that, is put in place. Madam, sorry?
Hold a minute, please. There's a second meeting proceeding.
Oh.
Should we take a break for a caucus? Members of the other side? I'm happy to grant it. We can. Should we proceed? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. As I was saying, the realities that present itself, the realities of the risk that present itself, it does not wait until a passenger arrives at our shore. And so it is important that we have those mechanisms in place and those measures in place to ensure that we are ahead of the game and we're not being reactive, but rather we are being proactive, Madam President. The modern border management requires countries to know border management requires countries to know who is traveling before they arrive and not after. And Madam President, if others are doing it, it works for them. I had similar experiences traveling on a personal level, and I was told, you know, I couldn't do X and Y because of my position. So not traveling on a diplomatic passport, but that information getting to my place of destination in advance says a lot. So that was one of the standout points for me here, because it shows that those things are necessary. It gives us the opportunity sometimes to even put certain measures in place before, so that we're not caught with our pants down, Madam President, and so we can prepare adequately. But I do hear the concerns, particularly shared by Senator Rahman, and I think it is fair, and thank you so much for that recommendation. Madam President, the bill provides a framework to strengthen our ability to do just what I explained before. And I want to take this presentation just from a slightly different twist of me standing here as a parliamentary secretary, but I also have a responsibility being part of the Caribbean Young Professional Network as a CSME navigator who acts as an ambassador for the CSME. Part of my responsibility is assisting young people to understand and take advantage of the opportunities available under the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, and particularly the free movement regime that we are focusing on, myself and Mr. Pope, who is the other CSME navigator. The free movement regime is something that we focus heavily on, and I obviously, because of my involvement in that and understanding how those things work, I welcome legislation such as this that supports greater regional integration while ensuring that the necessary safeguards are in place. And while we embrace the movement of people across our region, we must also recognize our responsibility to protect our borders, strengthen security, and ensure that travel remains safe, orderly, and well managed, Madam President. Regional integration does not mean abandoning vigilance, but I believe it requires us to put modern systems in place that allows us to facilitate legitimate travel while identifying potential risks before they become a problem. And so, Madam President, as much as we have the free movements of goods, people, and services, I believe that we do not want, obviously, not all money is good money, and not all free travel or free movement would be good movement, because we don't want the services, the black market services, to be also transferred through the free movement regime. So we have to be very mindful and careful of that. And I am also pleased that the bill recognizes the importance of privacy and accountability through provisions relating to data protection, oversight, and the responsible use of information. Security and privacy are not competing interests. Good legislation requires us to protect both, and I don't think that we should compromise on choosing between the two. Madam President, in a rapidly changing world, it is always better to be proactive than reactive. Or more simply put it, it is better to be safe than sorry. So, Madam President, with this, I lend my support to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cyril. Francis. Is there a request for the floor from Senator Horsford? You have requested the floor? Because your mouth is open. He's speaking. Senator Horsford, it's your turn.
To give any remarks on it. I support the bill. I was just indicating to my learned and distinguished friend, the Attorney General, having been there myself, I understand the animating context and the animating cause for these kinds of cross-border security, passenger information measures. What I wanted to say to, and I was gesticulating to her on that, I think she's the best person to respond to Senator Rahman's inquiry arising from his discomfort with some of the provisions regarding the children. Because in your conferences that form the background fora to the passage of these pieces of legislative measures, you would have some sort of policy information that can help him understand or give clarity to why these provisions are there. Because this bill is not an indigenous bill. We're familiar with the fact that it is piloted elsewhere. So perhaps my learned friend can do that. That's what I wanted to say, Madam President.
You're making a request, or at least a suggestion.
A suggestion that
it's been made. In
relation to his specific concern, the best person to address some of that, or if not all of it, is my friend.
It's your advice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Other contributors to the bill? Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, you have the floor, madam. So my suspicions were right. I thought there was a caucusing.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise to lend support to the bill now before this Honorable House the Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026. And first off, I endorse the supporting comments on the bill, or the supporting contributions on the bill from my colleagues, Madam President, on both sides. Madam President, this bill, as Senator Horsford correctly advises this House, is not an indigenous bill. Indeed, it's a harmonized bit of legislation, and it actually says so in the explanatory note, where it says, or when it gives a description of the bill and act to make provision for the collection, transmission, sharing, storage, and regulation of advanced passenger information and passenger name record in respect of person traveling to, departing from, and transiting through Grenada, and to operationalize the CARICOM Advanced Passenger and Crew Information System, subject to international standards and national legislation governing data protection and data privacy and other related matters. So from there, right away, we know we are not dealing with an indigenous law. Indeed, this is a CARICOM effort advised collectively by the Attorneys General of CARICOM, drafted by the senior legal officers of CARICOM, of which our own Chief Parliamentary Counsel, Ms. Winnet Baker, is a member. So, Madam President, this kind of puts the legislation in context as we move closer to and strengthen the CARICOM efforts in the concept of free movement of people. We know that that is an ongoing effort of CARICOM. Some nations have gone ahead and implemented. Barbados, Dominica, Guyana, St. Vincent. They've gone ahead and implemented free movement among CARICOM nations. Grenada is not far behind. As I said here on the last occasion when we debated another bill, in the OECS we already have free movement of people. And so as we strengthen the CARICOM region, whether it's in relation to free movement, the CSME, health, security, we see CARICOM impacts mentioned and featured a lot in the bill. CARICOM implementing agency for crime and security. As we strengthen all these organs and agencies of CARICOM, we would find more and more that we are bringing harmonized legislation to this Honorable House. Indeed, Madam President, Antigua and Trinidad and Tobago have already enacted this very legislation. And so the other CARICOM parliaments are likewise debating and passing this bill, and shortly we will all have the same legislation. So, Madam President, the benefits to legislation relating to advanced passenger information and passenger name record are, to some of us, obvious. Perhaps to others they may not be so obvious. But what these systems do is that they use technology to assess risk relating to travelers or flight risk, flight and travel by sea. They help prevent illegal migration, help fight and prevent other kinds of crimes, including narco trafficking, human trafficking, the illegal use of travel documents, persons who may illegally use other persons' travel documents to travel. And for travelers, Madam President, very significantly, these measures will reduce the time spent in being processed at airports and seaports. And in some respects, we are already experiencing some aspects of this. We have the online submission of the immigration form. We have, in fact, in some countries, they don't even submit a form anymore. For example, I recently traveled to the US and there wasn't even a need to submit a form at all. They have the information, they have your passport information already digitized, and they didn't do an immigration form at all. Right? So it was very quick and easy processing at the airport. So for travelers, it makes traveling a little easier. We do know we do have some other hassles relating to travel, but in relation to processing at airports and seaports, it makes for much more easier transit. Madam President, I would just highlight just a few sections of the legislation, considering that my colleague, the leader of government business, thoroughly traversed the various sections and parts of the legislation. Madam President, Section 5 establishes the Passenger Information Unit, and that will be the case in each of the member states and territories of CARICOM that enacts this legislation. And Section 5 provides for the establishment of the Passenger Information Unit to comprise an immigration officer of senior rank as head, a police officer, customs and excise officer, data protection officer, and recall 2023 we passed the Data Protection Act here, and such other officers and personnel as may be necessary for the efficient carrying out of the functions of the unit. And then Section 6 spells out the functions of the unit, which will include to receive, store, process, analyze, and manage advanced passenger and passenger name record data transmitted from an aircraft or vessel in accordance with the Act and for the purposes of national security, for the purpose of prevention, detection, investigation, and prosecution of terrorism and serious crime, manage and conduct risk assessment and analysis of the API and PNR data, and submit the results to law enforcement personnel as is necessary, I would say. Because of course, if the results, if it's processed and there is nothing to be flagged, there would be no utility necessarily in transmitting to law enforcement through the use of the appropriate tools and so provided. This legislation, Madam President, will use technology a lot, right? I want to scroll back to answer one of the questions raised by the learned senator, business senator, and he asked about what is serious crime when mentioned there. What are we talking about? And if you go to the definition section of the legislation, it defines serious crimes as an offense against the laws of Grenada for which a term of imprisonment of at least 12 months is required to be imposed. And that is what a serious crime is defined as in this legislation, offense against the laws of Grenada in relation to which at least a 12-month period of imprisonment is required to be imposed. Then, Madam President, I would like to take us to Section 28.
Senator, thank you for your very kind, detailed presentation. May I suggest you use the language of the bill and prefer if you say clause rather than section?
Okay.
For the record, yes, because we are looking for section and not finding it, but we are finding
Why you're
clause.
not finding it, Madam President? Okay, I'll use the word clause.
Thank you.
I don't know why you're not finding it, though. I'm guided, Madam President.
Thank you.
So, Madam President, if you scroll to page 38, 37, and you would see there the subheading PNR data and document retention, and you see 28 under that. That's how it would appear once passed. There wouldn't be any change. Section, clause, same thing. So 28.2. And I raised this in relation to a matter mentioned by, I think it was Senator Cox, where he raised the question of the data and why 7 years. I'm not sure that he was suggesting a longer or shorter period, but he asked the question where in section 28.2, clause 28.2, it is provided that the personal name record data retained in accordance with subsection 1, and subsection 1 allows for the captain or agent, captain of a vessel or agent of an aircraft, or a master or agent of a vessel, to provide data to the competent authority and impacts. And that data shall be retained in a central database of the competent authority for a period of 7 years, and for the data to be deleted subsequent to the passage of that period. And Madam President, this is in accordance with standard practice in the storage and retention of data. A very, very standard, whether it's you're dealing with banking, law, whatever field. It's usual for data collected to be, or in some instances even files, to be deleted or destroyed after 7 years. Usually, if legal action is to ensue or to flow from any of the information collected, or if legal action is, if any of the information stored is needed for legal action, normally you would find the outer limitation period for commencement of legal action to be 6 years. So that will inform the rationale for why after 7 years the data is deleted, because it is not likely that any form of legal proceedings will flow from the data, or that the data will be required for legal proceedings after that period. And so it is standard procedure for when data is collected, it to be deleted after 7 years. And in relation to the gray areas, to use his words that Senator Cox mentioned, the question of possible overreach, I wasn't quite sure what the concern there was, but and the whole issue of infringement of possible infringement of constitutional rights. We all know that with all the rights granted us by the Constitution come responsibility. And also, we know that said Constitution empowers the Parliament to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of the country, including for compliance with the very constitutional provisions. So rights enshrined or granted by the Constitution are not absolute rights. And where necessary, the Parliament is allowed to pass laws to ensure peace, order, and good governance of the country. So at Section 11, in terms of protection of privacy, I guess that is what Senator Cox was alluding to when he spoke of possible overreach and possible breach of constitutional rights. Section 11 of the legislation provides, Clause 11, provides that no government, department, or agency shall have direct access to advanced passenger information data and personal record data that is maintained by the competent authority. So when the competent authority gathers the information in accordance with this legislation, it cannot divulge the information to any government, department, or agency, or allow it to have direct access. It says, however, the authority may, pursuant to a written request from another government, department, or agency, grant access to such data, and such access may be limited or controlled. So, for example, the court. So there's a matter proceeding in court, and the court makes an order for certain data retained by the competent authority. In such circumstances, the proviso set out in subsection 2 will apply, right? And all data shall be validated by the competent authority before it's transmitted to the requesting government agency. So, again, there's a layer of care, protection, and security there. No person shall, without authorization, access, attempt to access, facilitate the access to, or cause access to API and PNR data that is maintained by the competent authority. And then, subsection 5 makes it an offense. A person who contravenes subsection 4, that's a person who, without authorization, accesses the data, makes it an offense, liable on summary conviction to the hefty fine of US $20,000, right? Or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or both. So the protections are built in, Madam President. Then Section 13 goes on to speak about verification of the advanced passenger information and the personal name record. And it says that the competent authority and the impacts, that's CARICOM Inc., shall establish a robust system for the verification of API and PNR data submitted by aircraft or vessels, ensuring accuracy, integrity, and reliability of the data collected. And it goes on to provide for the competent authority to employ appropriate mechanism and makes it mandatory for them to do so, and tools to validate the data collected, API and PNR data, provided by the captain or the agent of an aircraft or vessel. And it may include cross-checking the data against reliable, authoritative sources, such as travel documents, identity databases, and immigration records. So there are all these mechanisms built in. It provides for the data shall, subject to risk assessment and analysis to identify potential anomaly, they shall be subject to risk assessment and analysis to identify anomalies, discrepancies, or patterns that may require further investigation. And this is to mitigate against false or fraudulent documents being passed off as authentic travel documents. So, Madam President, if we continue to peruse the legislation, we would see sufficient safeguards built in which would mitigate against some of the concerns that the good Senator Cox raised. And then section 27 is the next section I would like to point this Honorable House to. But before going to section 27, Madam President, I would just like to pause to acknowledge the obvious error mentioned by Honorable Rahman in section 21, where it speaks at subsection 7 of a subsection 6, but there isn't a subsection 6. That there should be subsection 5, because subsection 5 provides that a passenger or crew member shall provide embarkation data and disembarkation data in accordance with the Act. And B, shall not intentionally or recklessly provide erroneous, misleading, incomplete, or false data. And that goes right back to the section I cited before, section 13, which deals with verification. So when the competent authority is verifying the data, it will pick up erroneous information and misleading, incomplete information, and false data. And that's where section 21 will then kick in. And subsection 7, that says a passenger or crew member who contravenes subsection, says there's 6, it should be 5, so we will do the correction at the committee stage. And that person will be liable on an administrative fine of $400 to be imposed by the competent authority. Because we acknowledge that some incomplete, erroneous data may not have been provided intentionally, maybe as a result of genuine errors. So, Madam President, section 27 is the last section I would like to highlight, and it's at page 36, and it deals with sensitive data. Subject to subsection 2, no person shall process PNR data that is sensitive, and where the competent authority, so talking again of protection to people's privacy, addressing the concerns raised, protection to privacy and other constitutional rights, the right in section chapter 1, section 13 of the Constitution, not to be discriminated against based on race, color, creed, sex, etc., as defined in the Constitution. Section 27 contemplates this because it says, no person shall process PNR data that is sensitive data, and where the competent authority and impacts receive any PNR data containing sensitive data, they shall, mandatory, immediately delete that data. And then it says that subsection 2, notwithstanding subsection 1, sensitive data may be processed in exceptional and immediate circumstances to protect the vital interests of an individual. And then sensitive data, Madam President, is defined in the definition section as data relating to the person's race, ethnic origin, political opinions, religious beliefs, trade union membership, health, sex life, or sexual orientation. So, by the conjoint effects of these sections that I have highlighted, the concerns raised are properly, I would say, Madam President, treated with, contemplated, and treated within the legislation. So it is basic information that is collected, shared, and stored in the legislation. Sensitive data that may lead to infringement of fundamental rights or human rights are required by Section 27 to be immediately deleted, except in the exceptional circumstances as provided for in subsection 2. So, Madam President, with those observations, I will commend this bill to this Honorable House as a region, as we move together to forge closer bond, to build a stronger Caribbean community, and to secure our borders, engage in self-help as a Caribbean region to make our borders and our space safer for all our citizens. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank you, Senator Joseph, for your contribution. Thank you very much. For my own clarification, I could ask what would be considered sensitive data, but I'll just leave that on the table.
Madam President, if I may please, there was one matter that Senator Horsford raised. Although I think he adequately explained why data for children under 18 may be required to be collected. Now, recall, sorry?
Who not traveling?
Sorry?
Who are not traveling. Children who are not traveling.
Oh, who are not traveling?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't pick up that nuance. Let me consider then. Not sure. I'll address it at the committee stage. Yeah.
Please, Senator, please approach. Thank you.
Wrap up now. No. Right. No, we go discuss any community stage. We go discuss those things. Yeah. So let's wrap up. Right,
Honorable Senator Joseph. Sorry? No? Who's on the floor? Oh, Senator Adrian Thomas, you have the floor, Senator.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I just rise to recognize all the contributions that was made on both sides, put it into this bill. I want to thank the members of this Honorable House. And having said so, I therefore commend this the Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026 to this Honorable House for passage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those who are of that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say nay. Ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026.
Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill part by part.
Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause, or part by part. Yes. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary say no. We are now in Senate, Committee of the whole Senate.
Part 2, Administrative.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 2 on administrative forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say nay.
Part 3, Common Provisions for Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 3, Common Provisions, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary say nay.
Part 4, API Operating Provisions.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 4, API Operating Provisions, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary say nay.
Part 5, PNR Operating Provisions.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 5, PNR Operating Provisions, pause. Senator Joseph, you have the floor, madam.
Sorry, Madam President. My light was on at the point where we were dealing with Part 4, because that's the part where we need to make the slight amendment to Section 21(7). Well, it says 7, it should be 6, so there are actually 2 amendments to be made there. So Clause 21, where it says 7, that should be 6. And in the body of the clause itself, where it says subsection 6, that should be 5. Thank you, Madam President.
I see 5 and 7, which will now become 5 and 6. That's correct? On the Clause 21, right, under Clause 21, we move from subsection 5 to 6.
No, Madam President, it should become 6 and 5, the reverse. So it should be the clause should be numbered 6. That's the one that's numbered 7. And the reference to subsection 6 in the text of the clause should be 5, subsection 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does everyone follow and agree? Therefore, we return to the question which is at part 4 on API operating provisions as amended in section 21, subsection 5 and 6 forms part of the bill. All those in agreement say aye. Contrary view say nay.
Part 5, PNR operating provisions.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 5, PNR operating provisions, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary say nay.
Part 6, administrative fines.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 6 on administrative fines forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say nay.
Part 7, exchange of PNR data with other participating states.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 7, exchange of PNR data with other participating states, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary say nay.
Schedule 1, timelines for electronic submission of PNR data by a master or agent of a vessel.
Is there another Part 8, Clerk? I think there's Part 8 on miscellaneous.
Sorry. Part 8, miscellaneous.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 8, miscellaneous, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say nay. Senator Rahman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Schedule 2 is under Part 8. Part 8, is Schedule 2 under Part 8, considered under Part 8, or the schedules considered separately? They're going to be called separately? Okay, I'll wait till Schedule 2. Thank you.
Schedule 1, timelines for electronic submission of PNR data by a master or agent of a vessel.
Honorable members, the question is that Schedule 1 forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say nay.
Schedule 2, passenger name record, PNR, data elements.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the point 12 or clause 12 under section 2. This is the issue that I raised It reads for the listening public. General remarks. Now, there's a lot of information required in these sections, and they are necessary. But I couldn't see how this would be needed or utilized. General remarks, it reads, including all available information on unaccompanied children, unless that's supposed to be accompanied children. If it's accompanied children, then it makes sense, because you need to know who's traveling with the passenger that may be suspect. But if it's unaccompanied children, less than 18 years of age, we're speaking about minors here. They want to know the gender, the language spoken, the contact details, and so on, where they could find them. I find that whilst we know that a lot of legislation legislation that is the same across the region, and we accept them, there may be certain aspects of the legislation that don't fit for us, and that's why we're here. We're not here to say that, you know, we have the right to say that we don't accept it, but we do accept it. It's good, and it's necessary. But in terms of information such as this, I don't see. The only thing that can come to my mind is that maybe a single mother, if she is suspect of a crime, they may wish to know how many children she has at home so that they can consider the punishment, a different type of punishment because of the fact that she might have small children at home. That's the only thing that would come to my mind. What would warrant this type of information? So I don't know if it is a typo and it's supposed to be accompanied, or if it is supposed to be unaccompanied, and if so, what is the reason for wanting that specific information? Thank you.
Madam President, if I may.
Senator Joseph.
Yeah, this here relates to, when it speaks on unaccompanied children, it means minors, that is people under 18 who are traveling alone, or traveling by themselves. So remember, the legislation applies to all travelers. So all travelers, the advanced passenger information and passenger name record will be transmitted. So whether you're adult or minor and you're traveling, the legislation will apply to you. Now, this is an additional cover for unaccompanied children, because remember too that the legislation is seeking to help mitigate against trans-border crimes, including human trafficking. And children are particularly vulnerable and susceptible to human trafficking. They may be traveling on their own. Take, for example, a 15-year-old, 15, 16-year-olds, that's a part of their life, 14, 15, 16, they are most prone to run away, meet persons online, and run away. They do it locally, and there's no telling whether it can happen across borders too. Hence the need for all these details, including the contact details for the guardian on arrival, the relationship to the minor. So a red flag will be raised if the person, the adult who is meeting this minor, has absolutely no relationship to them. So it's really for the protection of the minor travelers. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Madam Chair, when she puts it in clear terms, it makes a lot of sense. The difference is in the language. The language that is drafted, because we're talking about travelers. So this, right.
Unaccompanied children who are traveling but they're not with the airline has to take care of them.
But they are travelers.
Yes, they are travelers.
So their information is already captured in Section 1 and Section 2. right? You're speaking about specific additional information. So it causes you to think that it is additional information other than the traveler with so much information on section 1, the previous section, and that section requires. A traveler is a traveler. So if all it needs to do is to give a further clarification, because what the Honorable Attorney General has just mentioned makes good sense. But the wording, because you have to remember, you have to put it into context. We're reading an entire document, and this document lays out section 1, a lot of information. We didn't go into details here, that is collected on the passenger. So when it says general remarks, including all available information on unaccompanied children, it lends to the thought that these are outside of this traveler, right? Because the traveler is present. So it's a wording. But if that is, we all understand what it is, and if that's acceptable, I'm okay with it if others feel that it could stand.
But Madam President, lower down in the same section, we talking about contact details of guardian. The guardian may not necessarily be traveling per se, but you have to give the details. I think that's what I interpret there. Also. No, the children traveling and the airline take care of them. They're under 8. They're unaccompanied. They don't have their parents or the guardian with them. So if you go with a 5-year-old going to Trinidad now, you'll have to deliver them to the airline and the airline will take care of them. Now this section is asking for, we want information of the guardian, the parents of those kids who drop them on the airport. That's, yeah.
Yes, the information as explained by the honorable senators is very clear. No doubt there. So I have no problem with it. I just have a problem with how the language is. Perhaps it is my interpretation, or misinterpretation, rather. I would suggest, Madam President, that that a statement for clarification. So, general remarks, for example, on children traveling, on minors traveling. If you have general remarks, why couldn't you have general remarks on minors traveling? It carries the same meaning, but it then explains exactly what you're speaking about. Right, okay, well that's fine, it's fine.
Perhaps there ought to be an explanatory note or a clarification attached following the passage of this. Is that possible? Will that, Senator Rahman?
This will be my last comment on this, God willing. So it may be difficult to make the change now, as the honorable member just mentioned, and so I accept the wording, if it is okay by others. Thank you.
Thank you for your spirit of compromise. Thank you. And we return to propose, honorable members, that the question is that Schedule 2 be adopted. All those who are of that opinion say aye, and of the contrary say nay.
Schedule 3, Advanced Passenger Information Data Elements and Embarkation and Disembarkation Data Elements.
Honorable members, the question is that Schedule 3 on Advanced Passenger Information concerning embarkation and disembarkation data elements be accepted. All those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary say nay.
Schedule 4, time frame for submission of API and embarkation and disembarkation data.
Honorable members, the question is as Schedule 4 on timetable for submission of the relevant data be accepted. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay.
Schedule 5, timelines for electronic submission of PNR data by a captain or agent of an aircraft.
Honorable members, the question is at Schedule 5, timelines for electronic submission of the PNR data be accepted. All those in favor say aye, and of the contrary say nay.
Schedule 6, data elements to be submitted on the FAL Convention.
Honorable members, the question is that Schedule 5 on data submitted under the FAL Convention be included. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay.
Schedule 7, consequential amendment to the Immigration Act, Cap 145.
Honorable members, the question is at Schedule 6, consequential amendment to the Immigration Act, Schedule 7, consequential amendment to the Immigration Act, Cap 145, be accepted. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. All passed.
Part 1, preliminary.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 1, preliminary, be accepted. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Leader of Government Business.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the Senate resumes and the Chair of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the Senate resumes and the Chair of the committee report progress on the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say nay. Senate is resumed.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the Chair's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the Chair's report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. I haven't given the report.
Sorry.
May I give the report? Honourable members of the Senate, the bill before you on Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026 was considered by a committee of the whole. Section 21 was slightly amended for numerical accuracy. There was some discussion and the bill was passed. Thank you. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the Chair's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the Chair's report be adopted. As many as are of that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say no. Honorable Senator.
Madam President, I beg to move that the third reading of the bill be taken at this time.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and passed. As many as are of that opinion say aye, and of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill 2026.
Item number 14, public business. Item number 15, adjournment.
Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move that this honorable House be adjourned. Signed, aye.
Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House be adjourned. Signed, aye. Senator Rahman.
Madam President, I just want to make a brief comment. Oh, movement to adjourn already? Okay. I just want to make a brief comment. Senator Francis mentioned today that she spoke about the non-lethal self-defense tools. And I think that I didn't support that, but I do support it. I wanted to say that at that time when she said it, I was thinking that I would, commend her for the exercise 2 days ago with the youth parliamentarians and the work that she's doing in her area, her ambit. She always has a lot that's going on. And I didn't want this session to pass and that I forget. But when you want to change the course of a people, you have to work with the youth. And I want to commend you for that because having youth that are involved in the issues of today and the issues of Grenada and the fact that these halls can be filled, it shows that the people are interested in what's going on in our country, and it shows that there is connection between the leadership and the youth. That's very, very important for the future. So I want to commend you on that. I do support self-defense, non-lethal self-defense tools that the allowance for are not necessarily given openly, and also self-defense training in our school, especially for girls throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, so that at least we can have tougher girls and they can protect themselves in a better way. In terms of what Senator Joseph had mentioned about the Decent Work Initiative, it is supported by the private sector. I didn't want today's session to finish without me mentioning that. And it is a good thing. It is only as good as how it is implemented and rolled out. But in principle, it is good. We know that the ILO is an organization that has been in existence before the United Nations in 1919. It came into effect, so this is not something new. I don't think the Senator mentioned that. But I also want to mention that in the same way that we have freedom of religion, we also have freedom from any religion. And in the same way that we have freedom of association, we can also have freedom from any association, meaning that freedom exists either way, of a person to choose to belong to an entity or not. And that is important to mention. So I thank you both for the work that you have done recently in the advancement of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other statements? Hearing none, I would like to thank you, honorable senators, for your presence here today. I think we had a good session with the reports of how our country is moving forward at different stages at home and abroad. I did want to correct an omission, and I here now congratulate Senator Gloria Thomas in her absence for being Grenada's elected representative to the Commission, Inter-American Commission on Women. Grenada, through her, is now the vice president of that regional body. And I think it's combining that with the role that Senator Joseph tells us Grenada is playing in the ILO certainly means that we are undertaking our obligation as a member of that democratizing international system of which I spoke at the beginning. As for the youth, you're present, and just remind the youth that this is an intergenerational and will always be an intergenerational reality. And your contribution is extraordinary and should continue. And to thank Senator Seville for her leadership. I want to thank Senator Quince Britton for his leadership with the African Liberation Day events, new elements, and to thank you for the carnival, safe elements, and to thank you for all the rolling out of arts and artistic expression in the complexity that we have here in Grenada. It's wonderful to be in